What's up, everyone? Trip Astrology readings here. So we have a pretty interesting week this week. It's I really want to describe it in this first-hand kind of way, and also on the chart so you can recognize how to read it. So I'm gonna do this video and then the weekly horoscope with the camera pointed at the chart on the screen so you can see it. So the focus of this week is basically Sun conjunct Pluto while squaring Uranus, and then we've got Venus square Neptune and conjunct Saturn. If you're up in the morning at like maybe an hour, half an hour before the sun rises, or even as the sun rises, you can see Venus close to the sun rising over there at the beginning of Sagittarius, and then, like this far away in your vision, see Venus moving towards Saturn. Saturn is the non-twinkling, fairly distant, but still quite visible planet that is, right below Venus in the sky. So it's like this. We're being hit in two very specific points right now. We're being hit in the sensitive points of Uranus square Pluto and Saturn square Neptune. Those are probably some of the two most important aspects of this entire decade. Both of those. Yeah, they're probably among the most important aspects of this entire decade. Without a doubt, Uranus square Pluto is the most important aspect of this decade, as is Neptune in Pisces, Uranus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn. The energy of this decade, it is defined by Uranus square Pluto, such aspects as Saturn square Neptune, although it's just a 2-year thing or so. It's Uranus in Aries, it's Pluto in Capricorn. That's this era. So, what is Pluto in Capricorn? What is Saturn square Neptune? What is the Uranus-Pluto square? That is something that we can only even begin to decode. Hindsight is 20/20. So we can see in hindsight, especially based on what happens in the future, what ideas were more prevalent, more rising in a given area of time. You can look back on the 1930s and compare that to this era, when the last Uranus-Pluto square happened, when Uranus was also in Aries. Such people as the revolutionaries of the 60s and the civil rights movement, like Martin Luther King, they were born in the last Uranus in Aries of, the 1930s, the late 1920s. So, without getting too far off track, this is what's happening. Venus is at a very positive spot. Also we have Mercury square Mars stuck on peak all week too. So that tension and frustration of Mercury square Mars is now kind of transmuted and further evolved since we've been feeling it on peak, and we're feeling less of frustration and more of the more positive aspects of Mercury square Mars, and that is motivation but lack of focus. Bursts of fiery energy, well, not exactly bursts at this point, it's kind of a consistent flow, in my opinion. So Mercury square Mars is just flowing Martian energy into our collective space of mind, our collective Mercury place. Mercury's position in the sky at any given time affects us very strongly, because Mercury is the tangible mind, it's the mind that you do feel. So that's why Mercury retrogrades are sometimes so bad. But this Mercury retrograde, it's not going to be bad like other ones. It's just not. It's going to be a great retrograde until it becomes an intense retrograde when Mercury conjoins Pluto and squares Uranus, just like where the Sun is right now. So, about a week or two ago, Mercury conjoined Pluto and squared Uranus. That was a tiny little bit of piercing Uranus-Pluto square energy being emphasized in one of the most visible ways that you can feel in energy in the sky. Mercury conjoining it. So, the Sun tomorrow, Tuesday, January 5th, conjoins Pluto, Capricorn. The Sun is the core energy of the day. The Sun is just the day. It's the ego. Your sun in your chart is you. It's what everything revolves around, you know? So the placement of the Sun in the sky is a very similar thing to the placement of Mercury, because it kind of affects the whole energy of the day. You've got Mercury also very close to the Sun at all times, so a given era of time is often characterized by both Mercury and the Sun in that sign. Right now we have the Sun and Mercury both in Capricorn. You know, during one of the Mercury retrogrades in 2015, we had Mercury retrograde in Gemini. We had the Sun, Mars, Mercury, and Venus all in Gemini, and it all squared Neptune. Yeah, that Mercury retrograde of May 2015, that actually emphasized the energy of the Saturn-Neptune square before it happened, because that's the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius squaring Neptune. Anyway, so right now, damn, I keep getting off track. I'm sorry about that. But, okay, it's like this. Venus is at a very, well, first of all, I'm going to do Sun conjunct Pluto square Uranus. So, when the Sun aligns with Pluto tomorrow, I can feel it coming on right now. It's an increasing intensity. It's an intensity energy. So, the placement of Pluto in the sky at any point is a magnifying glass to any energy where Pluto rests. When Pluto is in Scorpio, it's a magnifying glass for Scorpio. When Pluto is in Sagittarius, as it was in the 2000s decade, it's a magnifying glass for the energy that it's beaming to us from that sign. I feel like the planets work like magnifying glasses or copper balls that kind of beam any energy that's between that planet and Earth. You know, that's why when a planet's in a sign, it has this characteristic. And it also beams energy to planets through angles. So the planets on the belt of the ecliptic right there, you've got one right there. Okay, so say that's Pluto. That's Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto is just a ball of intensity. Pluto governs intensity, piercing depths, uncovering the truth. It's Scorpio. Pluto is something that we're still learning about. We're still learning about everything in astrology, but what I can tell you is a foundational thing that can enable you to figure out with your intuition and your thinking more about what the aspect means. I tell you in hopes that you will dig deeper, because this is just a rudimentary foundation. You know, there are many things